Podcast City Network.
This is Final Score, your number one podcast for sports news. Here are your hosts, Chris and Craig.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Final Score, episode 84, and we keep just going up and up, but you know what? It's not going to make us stop, because we always try to bring the very best that we can week in and week out, because let's admit it, we're sports addicts, man. Like, there's a sport group, we'll probably be on the cover of the brochure, so, you know, here we are again. But I can't do this by myself, because it ends up being a funny, quick, crazy mess. Anyways, that's why I have none other than Craig. How are you, bud?
I'm doing great, man, and happy birthday yesterday, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, celebrated in supreme fashion, and I am feeling it today.
Yeah, absolutely. You're definitely feeling it today. We were talking about that before we went on, and but happy birthday, man. I know you had a great day yesterday. Definitely deserve it, but I'm excited. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. NFL, MLB, NHL. We got the whole gamut ready to go, so you want to just dive on in?
Oh, man, we need to dive right in. But right before we can, you got to make sure that you follow us on social media at PCN Final Score on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. Go on, give us a like, give us a follow, invite your friends, share with your friends, leave a comment, all that great stuff that I say week in and week out. Go and do it. Check us out. A lot of great stuff on there, and our meme game is strong. So keep that in mind. But definitely going to jump right into this. NFL Week 13. We had no Thursday night game this week, with it being just a crazy week. We had pushed Baltimore and Pittsburgh all the way back to a Wednesday because of COVID-19. It's absolutely crazy. Like, when you sit here and can say, oh, RG3 throwing passes to Des Bryant at 3:20 on a Wednesday afternoon, you know you're in 2020. So it's been absolutely crazy, man. What do you think about that actually happening?
It's kind of we were talking about this last week. It's kind of surprising they decided to actually play the game, but this is the NFL we're talking about. Of course they're going to get the game done. They're going to do whatever they can to try to make everything happen, even though they should not be playing games right now in some of these locations. But then again, I mean, look at what they did with this Ravens and Steelers game, which was a pretty premier game. They move it all the way to Wednesday. But what do they do to Denver? No, you guys don't have any QBs? Nope, you're playing anyway. We don't even care about you.
Yep.
So it kind of just shows you that the bias that the NFL has here. But again, they want to make sure they don't want to be like college football where they're like, well, some teams play 5 games and their teams play 10. Like, they want to have everyone be on as level playing field as possible. But I give them credit. They've adjusted the schedule as necessary. But I'm really gonna be surprised, or not really surprised. I'm really gonna be kind of really, I guess, yeah, surprised is the word, when they actually do get rid of a game or move it to that extra week that they're talking about. That'll make things really interesting, and that's kind of what I'm not looking forward to, but expecting to happen at some point in the season. As bad as it's been getting everywhere, you know this is going to happen at some point. So how's the NFL going to handle that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. To this point, to me, it's just been just because the NFL's been having a tough time really handling this the way they should be. And I'm going to actually point out a comment we have in the chat right now. If you have any comments, definitely post it into our Final Score chat. A lot of great stuff. We always try to bring you guys up, but our good friend Jimmy says, come on, guys, it's just player safety, which is the excuse the NFL has been giving everybody. However, I feel like having a almost practice squad wide receiver come in to play quarterback is just as dangerous, given that he's not been able to practice in any way, shape, or form to step in as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And on top of it, you're leaving him open to injury. Depending upon how he throws that ball, he had some wild throws because he's not a quarterback and could have left some of those wide receivers in peril and left them getting knocked the hell out. So there's a lot of safety issues that came from that alone, and obviously it showed on the scoreboard as well. Denver getting absolutely dominated by New Orleans. So it's hard to try and fathom player safety being at the forefront of that. So I don't know.
Player safety. Benjamin Franklin and
oh my god,
and Lincoln and Washington and they're not players. Oh wait, no, that's never mind. That's the motivation behind it all.
Oh my goodness, so much insanity. But NFL always shows its bias every year. But what better year to do it than 2020? It's been a shit show, anyways, right? So
yeah, sports has been a complete shit show in 2020, and yeah, I mean it's going to affect 2021 too. We're already seeing another sport, which we'll talk about later.
Oh man, yeah, and then we definitely got a huge slate of games that we're going to be talking about today. So many good matchups. But before we get to that, I think you have something you want to say, don't you?
Absolutely. We want to let everyone know that Final Score is looking for contributors. So the team here with Podcast City Network and Final Score, we're looking for contributing writers to help us out with the sports blog and to have segments on the show, basically to help kind of grow our community and also kind of help other people get involved as well as far as wanting to build. If you ever wanted to be a sports writer or in journalism, or everybody can do a podcast now. Yeah, we get that. But the community and the content that we've been looking to build over the last 2 years, we're looking for people that want to push that cause forward. So we're looking for a sports writing role. If you want to build resume experience, if you just want to build your brand as a journalist, you love sports, and you just want to grow within this business. If you want to learn more about it, or if you think you'd be a great fit, we're open to all sports: hockey, basketball, football, baseball, golf, MMA, soccer, all of those sports. We're looking for contributors in those areas. And hey, you might even get a segment on the show every week or so. So let us know. You can either message us here on Facebook, Final Score, or you can email us at pcnfinalscore@gmail.com.
Yep, definitely hit us up, and definitely always looking for some great people with a similar addiction to sports. So and it ain't too hard to find some of those people. So definitely check us out. Shoot us a message, and we'll definitely try and get something going. But let's go ahead and hit these.
Shoot up the message.
Shoot off a message. Don't mind me. There was a lot of whiskey last night. All right, but to get off on our slate of games today, our first 1 o'clock game, we have the 9-2 New Orleans Saints traveling out to the 4-7 Atlanta Falcons. New Orleans is favored by 3, over under at 46. New Orleans, though, has been looking like a really good team. Oh, wait, until Drew Brees decided to break 11 ribs. So, things happen, I guess, when you get older. But now you have Taysom Hill slotting in. Hasn't looked the greatest as a passer in any way, shape, or form, sadly. But
shocker.
Hey, they're still finding ways to win, I guess, right? So not quite the Teddy Bridgewater satisfaction that they had when Drew Brees went down was last year. So, but, it is what it is. But you got to wonder if those rumblings for Jameis Winston are going to get a little bit louder if they can't get some consistency, especially when you have Michael Thomas streaking down the field. However, the Falcons are not the greatest of teams. I need Matty Ice to actually get points for me today, but it's okay. If he doesn't, I already secure playoffs, so fans, do not worry. Your boy is going to playoffs. No worries. And yes, I am going to talk about playoffs. So, no, but at the end of the day, the Saints are going to be able to still come in here. Alvin Kamara is going to have a bounce-back game after only getting 5 points in fantasy last week, and is going to be able to come out, wreck this team, because the Falcons don't really have a discernible defense. They only show up in sporadic times. So there might be a few big plays, but this is going to be Saints game. Saints are going to take this and cover.
And the next game, we're talking about the Detroit Lions 4-7, fresh off the firing of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. And apologies, it's my dog's barking for no reason. And They're traveling to Chicago to play against probably the worst 5-6 team in the NFL, in the Chicago Bears. In this game, this has all the makings of, obviously these games, for whatever reason, Chicago's probably going to start Mitch Trubisky, because every time Mitch Trubisky plays against the Detroit Lions, he looks like a freaking Pro Bowler. But with Darrell Bevell taking over this team as the interim head coach, I would not be surprised if the Lions get the dub today, even though they're underdog by 3 points. I would not be surprised if the Lions take the dub today on the road and get it, just because it's the first game under a new regime. Mm-hmm. They want to change the direction of this franchise. And, hey, Darrell Bevell also, mind you, is at this point coaching to be the interim tag off that name there. That's what he wants. So I would not be surprised. The Bears are on a 5-game losing streak, which doesn't help, but they've won 5 straight games against the Lions. So something's got to give here. I'm going to take the Lions in an upset.
Oh, man, that's crazy. And if that happens, all you're going to hear in Chicago is over and over.
Matt Nagy's going to be on the hot seat if he loses to the Lions today.
Oh, absolutely agree, especially with a semi-leaderless Lions who doesn't even have a full-on head coach. Like, come on now. Detroit's been just a pit of misery for a little bit now. I'm so sorry it works out that way for you, Craig, but it's going to be crazy, man.
It is.
It's gonna be crazy.
That's the joy of being a Detroit sports fan. That's what we got to deal with right now.
Oh my goodness. In our next game, and possibly one of our best matchups of the weekend, we have the 8-3 Cleveland Browns traveling down to Tennessee to take on the 8-3 Titans. Tennessee is favored by 5, but do not let that fool you. I feel like this game really could go either way. The Browns have been hot as of late, been able to actually come together better as a team, I feel like. Even through the injuries of OBJ, they've still been able to make it happen, and this is honestly probably going to be one of the more memorable Cleveland Brown seasons, even though it's in the middle of a pandemic. But, whatever. But Tennessee, though, has been looking like a juggernaut, and I cannot wait to show the meme later. It's going to be so great because I'm going to make you guys eat your words. You guys try to tell me that there's no way Derrick Henry is going to be able to do anything against Indianapolis and all this jazz, and he ended up destroying them. So I think Derrick Henry has the potential to do the same today against Cleveland, and I don't think it's even going to be close. I really think Tennessee might embarrass Cleveland a little bit today. 5? I think it might be double digits. What do you think about the next one?
Next game, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals, 2-8-1, traveling down to Miami. Sunshine. And it's a little cold down here, by the way. So those of you that are watching in the north, yes, it got in the 30s last night. It was chilly. But, in Miami, 7-4, 1 o'clock game. This is going to be on CBS. Miami's favored by 10.5. Oh, here's what's on the line for the Miami Dolphins. Don't look now, but they're only 1 game back from the AFC East lead right now. They're in contention for their first AFC East title since 2008, which would be their first playoff berth since 2016, and it would be maybe their first postseason win since 2000. So I keep, they need to win this game. They really do. I mean, with all the injuries that the Bengals have and the Bengals being on the road, I think this is going to be I wouldn't say it's a pretty easy win, but I think they're going to end up covering here. It's not going to, might be like, 14, 17 points kind of thing, but Miami needs this if they want to stay in the hunt. They're only a game behind the Bills there at 8-3, and the rest of your schedule that you see that you got coming up, you got the Chiefs, you got the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Bills. So, I mean, 2 of those games against some pretty premier teams. So they really need to win the games that they should win if they want to keep pace with the Bills here.
Oh, absolutely, and that's something they're definitely going to try and capitalize on, especially against that defense. So definitely see how it works out. Oh, man, I tell you what, it's going to be a crazy weekend, just like this next game that probably not many are going to watch because you have the 1-10. You heard me right. 1-10 Jacksonville Jaguars traveling up to Minnesota to take on the 5-6 Vikings. Minnesota favored by 10, over under at 51.5. Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook are starting to find themselves, but it's easy to do when you're going against hapless defenses. Dalvin Cook, though, has been just churning it out, being an absolute force. So glad I've dodged him in fantasy. And he's been just tearing it up, making defenses just look silly. And I don't see anything changing this week. Kirk Cousins probably going to get a few passes in. He'll look serviceable as usual. But this is going to be the Dalvin Cook show. As well as that Minnesota defense is going to be able to really attack this Jaguars offense. It's been really depleted. So this is not even going to be a question. Minnesota takes this, and I definitely think they cover.
And I think this is the second to last game. So in our 1 o'clock window, the Las Vegas Raiders at 6-5 travel to the winless 0-11 New York Jets. Vegas is favored by 7.5. However, even with our pandemic, West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock game never works out well. Teams may play well, but yeah, we're talking about the Jets. But don't forget, they're traveling West Coast to East Coast at a 1 o'clock game. 4 o'clock games are a little bit different, but that 1 o'clock game, you're way off on your regular routine. You're up a lot earlier than normal. But I would not be surprised. So I just would not be surprised if this ends up being an oddly close game. So, but really what they're going to have to do is, if you're the Raiders, you just got to feed Jacobs. He's got 9 touchdowns on the ground. He's got just under 800 yards. They're only averaging 125 on the ground on offense, but you got to take care of that. If you can control the clock and give it to Jacobs on the ground, we've seen what the Jets offense looks like. So it's not gonna take a whole lot to beat this team. But just be careful. This could be one of those trap type games for the Raiders, because I mean their next game is against the Colts. They have 3 straight games at home after this game. So next game's against the Colts. This could be a trap game. So watch out.
Oh, yeah, definitely could be. But I know Josh Jacobs is still dealing with some lingering issues as well from some of these past games, just getting dinged up. So definitely something to watch out for, I think, as well. But, man, I feel like you're giving the Jets a little too much credit. Remember, the Raiders aren't in Oakland anymore. They're in Vegas now. That's like what, like a couple hours right there maybe, in travel time? Well, that's just like in a car. But either way.
Still the West Coast.
It's not quite as west. Oh, man, I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting. But in our next one, our last 1 o'clock slotted game, we have the 7-4 Indianapolis Colts traveling to the 4-7 Houston Texans. Indianapolis is favored by 3. This game also, I think, could go either way. A lot of people want to give the Colts credit for what they've been able to do to this point, even though they've had some losses that they probably shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, you have the Houston Texans, who were a team we thought was going to be a force to reckon with this season and has severely fallen short thanks to a brutal schedule. Deshaun Watson trying to do everything he can there, but now loses Will Fuller to a PED suspension. So Houston, if you got Brandon Cooks in fantasy, you better be starting the crap out of him, because that's like the only receiving threat they have left right now. So something to keep in mind as well. But just so much going on. It's going to be I think a lot closer of a game than people are really going to expect. Indy's going to have to watch out, but I think Indy still can pull this out. And I'm going to take Indy, but I think Houston will cover.
And in our 4 o'clock window, we've got the first game, the LA Raiders at LA Rams. I just see the LA and assume the Raiders.
Oh my goodness.
The LA Rams is 7-4 going to Arizona to play against the 6-5 Cardinals. Rams are favored by 3, and I think this is really going to be a fun game to watch. Not only what you've seen from that offense of the Cardinals and Kyler Murray and Kenyon Drake and DeAndre Hopkins, what those guys have been able to do, but don't forget this Rams defense, for as up and down as they've kind of played, that defense that they have is ranked in top 5 in passing yards allowed, rushing yards allowed, and points allowed. So that's really the matchup that I'm looking at, is the Rams defense versus Kyler Murray and that offense. As long as, and on the other side, as long as Jared Goff doesn't make a ton of mistakes, they should be fine. They should be in a pretty good position to win. They're top 10 in rushing yards, and they're number 10 in passing yards. So it's really going to be up to that defense. Can you contain Kyler Murray, who's got 10 rushing touchdowns on the season, which is all by far and away leading the quarterbacks category. So I think the Rams are going to win this game on the road. I think it'll be a very, very tight game, as the spread indicates. But I wouldn't be surprised if this 48.5 goes over.
Yeah, definitely could. It could be very interesting given how those offenses are set up. So we'll definitely see. In our other 405 game, though, we have the 4-7 New York Giants traveling on to the West Coast to take on the 8-3 Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is favored by 11, which is only our second largest line of the day. Seattle, though, is a really good team, a really complete team. Have let a couple losses go in some close games that they really shouldn't have just because of poor play or poor decision making. But the New York Giants are the New York Giants. You have Daniel Jones, who's a barely serviceable quarterback. You've already lost Saquon Barkley for the year. You don't have much in the way of receivers outside of Ingram and Sterling Shepard. So I don't feel the Giants have a whole lot in the cupboard to be able to match up against this Seattle team. However, Seattle does let up a buttload of passing yards, and last I checked, was on pace to have either one of the third worst passing defenses in NFL history. So maybe Daniel Jones might be able to get a little bit of luck there, but the Seattle offense is way too strong. They're going to wear down that defense, and I think Seattle's going to win this, but I'm going to say the Giants are going to cover.
And moving on to our next window, the 425 window, the Patriots at 5-6, seeing some struggles they haven't seen in a very long time in Foxborough. They are going to travel out to the West Coast to the Chargers in LA. They are 3-8. The Chargers are actually favored by 1.5 here, and probably just more a product of the fact that the Patriots offense has not been playing very well. Just kind of taking a look at some of the offensive stats here. Passing yards, Chargers are second in the league in passing yards. So Justin Herbert's been having quite a big season here. Even with all that, the Patriots is still, on the ground have been doing very well. They're top 5 in rushing yards in the league. So that's really going to be the matchup here is can the Patriots control the clock enough to keep the Chargers off the field, because you know what they can do in the passing attack. But even with that, as far as defenses are concerned, both of these defenses aren't necessarily very good, but they're not terrible either. So I'm going to take probably the Chargers to win this game, but I would not be surprised. This is basically, even though it's 1.5, it's basically a pick 'em to me.
Oh yeah.
Just kind of looking at how a lot of these things stack up. But if the Patriots want any legit chance to win the AFC East, this is a must-win. Every game from here on out is a must-win for the Patriots.
Oh, absolutely agree. And I definitely agree that game's pretty much a pick 'em. So that's definitely one you can probably sit back and really enjoy. In our next game in the 425 slot, though, we have my hapless Eagles at 3-7-1, traveling on over to the frozen tundra of Green Bay to take on the 8-3 Packers. Green Bay favored by 8.5, over-under at 49. Philadelphia looking for answers at this point. A lot of people want to put blame on Wentz. This is not all Carson Wentz's fault. If you say so, you are a liar, and I will call you out every single time. He is a good quarterback who has made some stupid decisions. How do you throw it to a wide open defender in the end zone when Dallas Goedert's just anyways, at the end of the day, though.
So that's not his fault, correct?
I didn't say it was all his fault. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I'm just giving you a hard time.
That one's all his fault, definitely. He was a freaking idiot on that play. Anyways, but that's the point, though, is that you can't put all the blame on Carson Wentz and just think that putting in Jalen Hurts is going to give you any type of a better result. At the end of the day, this team has fielded over 30 different starting lineups this season, including putting themselves in a position when they played the Giants earlier this year, where all they had left on their starting offense was Carson Wentz and Jason Kelce, and still win the game. So if you're able to weather those kinds of injuries and even be anywhere in a position, even at 3-7-1, to threaten for the NFC East lead, I mean, can you really hate on him that much? However, it was announced this week that Doug Peterson is definitely on the hot seat. Excuse me. And if he does not find some type of continuity and some wins, I don't think he's going to be there much longer. So it's going to be interesting. But Green Bay is killing it. Aaron Rodgers is being Aaron Rodgers as he normally is. And Green Bay has also actually found a running game with Aaron Jones. Defense playing much better as well. Sadly, Philadelphia Eagles just do not match up against Green Bay. On paper, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers should be able to sweep the floor with the Eagles and cover, but the Eagles always seem to be pesky. I think the Packers will win this, but the Eagles will cover. Probably be a 3-point game.
Speaking of teams that don't have a quarterback, Sunday Night Football matchup, the Denver Broncos at 4-7, travel to Arrowhead to play the 10-1 Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by 13.5. Not much here. Chiefs cover, game over. Like that's all you got to really look at here. The Broncos actually do get quarterbacks returning.
They have quarterbacks this week.
Yeah, they actually have quarterbacks this week, which is great. But it's not going to matter when you've got Pat Mahomes, who's got 30 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions on the year, and that offense, which is I think number 1 or number 2. Let me get my phone loaded. Number 1 in pass offense, number 2 in points. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a blowout. There's not even a whole lot here to look at. The defense of the Denver Broncos is 7th in pass defense, which is nice. But yeah, we're talking about the Chiefs here.
Yeah.
Chiefs cover. Game over. No questions asked.
Pack it up. Go home. Open yourself a Coca-Cola.
Pack it up. Go home. Chiefs go to 11-1.
You gotta love it. So much craziness, but I definitely don't doubt that's probably what's going to happen. So for our Monday night slate, our first game of the evening will be a 5:00 game between the Washington Football Club at 4-7, traveling over to the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 11-0. And the reason they are a football club is because the Steelers are going to embarrass them and show that they are not a team, as Pittsburgh is favored by 7. But it's going to be a much worse game, even though Washington does boast a pretty decent defense, as well as being able to have Alex Smith return at quarterback. This is a feel-good story that's going to be crushed by a team of legitimacy. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to go out. They're going to wallop Alex Smith around. Please be careful with his leg. And they're going to end up winning the game and moving to 12-0. You can't stop the Steel train. It keeps on rolling, baby.
Wow, that's okay. All right, I don't think it'll be a blowout, but okay.
Oh, just wait.
And the reason that game is moved to Monday night, we have a doubleheader on Monday night because of thanks COVID. We appreciate that.
COVID.
In the nightcap of this Monday night game, we got 8-3 Buffalo Bills traveling to the quote San Francisco 49ers, who are actually playing in Arizona for a couple weeks. They're going to be playing. That's an interesting scenario that Arizona is going to see 2 games in 2 days on that field. That field is going to be torn up, even though it's turf. I understand that it's not going to be in good shape by the end of that game. So we got San Francisco's favored by 1 in this game, and it's really on the back of their defense. Their defense is still playing pretty well as far as getting, keeping them in games. So it's really what's going to help them out here is that defense still is top 2 in passing yards allowed. And, the Bills are playing well as far as we're talking about Josh Allen and 22 touchdowns over 3,000 passing yards. But this is really going to be a fun game. This is going to be a really fun game to watch. I really want to see how does Josh Allen, match up against this defense. I do think the Bills are going to win on the road, just because they have to keep their pace in the AFC East. But it's really the offense of the 49ers that I'm really going to be kind of worried about here in this game. Bills also have a pretty solid defense. And I'm wondering, it doesn't matter who's the quarterback here. It could be Mullins, Beathard, Garoppolo. They could throw in anybody they want. That offense is really not very good from a passing standpoint. Having Mostert back definitely helps. Big time helps.
Oh, yeah.
But I think this is going to be a really close game. Buffalo probably takes the upset here in a very, very tight game on Monday night.
Oh, yeah, definitely could see that happening all the way through. So in our last game of the slate, yes, a Tuesday night game. That'll start right after 8 o'clock. The 3-8 Dallas Cowboys traveling out to Baltimore to take on the 6-5 Ravens. Baltimore is favored by 7.5. This game, though, we do expect to see Lamar Jackson return and start in this game. So with that being said, there is no Dak Prescott on the other side still. You only have Andy Dalton. Sorry, Cowboys fans. Get over it. This is not even going to be close. 7.5, I think, is being nice. I think this is going to be more in the 10 to 13 point kind of a range because Baltimore is just a much better team right now than Dallas. Dallas is so discombobulated after losing Dak Prescott. No continuity on offense, no continuity on defense, and it's just been honestly a slugfest to get them to 3-8. I feel really honestly bad for their franchise right now just because of how Dak went down and how things have kind of turned out. But hey, welcome to 2020. It's just that kind of year. But Baltimore's going to end up going out and winning this easily. Dallas does not stand a chance, and Baltimore will move to 7-5 and try and position themselves for some type of a playoff push. So we'll see. So much craziness, though. But I also wanted to point out that we did have, the good old George DeMoya popping up in our chat. Still letting us know that his wife beats him in fantasy football. So make sure we make that known. But did say though that the
throw that last part in.
got to make sure we get that in. But did say that the stat queen did throw out Gaskin, who's been activated off IR, someone to look out for, as well as Colts running backs Hines and Taylor against Houston, who has allowed second most in rushing yards. So also something to watch out for, and tight end Henry, who's been trending up. So definitely some players to look out for if you need some fantasy help for your push into playoffs or through your week or your first round of playoffs. So definitely make sure to keep an eye out. Oh gosh, Jimmy killing me. Andy QB won by default Dalton. I love that. That's hilarious. Oh man.
That's great.
Love these guys.
Fantasy football playoffs are starting. I don't know. My teams aren't in it, so I don't know.
Wah, wah, wah. Oh, what am I doing? I'm actually set up for these
You
things.
have that?
It's okay, things happen. We can't all be winners. But you know how you can be a winner?
By shopping at Podcast City Network Shop.
There it is.
Whether it's a net gator to protect you from COVID-19 out there with all the recent spikes that we've had again, you can have a mug for your morning coffee. You can just get a T-shirt if you want to go out and represent Final Score and Podcast City Network. We've got you covered at PCN Shop. All the latest apparel and gear for your favorite podcast, whether it's Final Score, Urban Nerd Weekly, Everett Lee Show. I'm missing a couple, but all those just off the top of the dome here. But all of those shows, you have access to getting their gear to help support the show. And of course, all the proceeds that you spend in the shop, and to make sure you can get them in by Christmas, you got to order by the end of this week just to make sure they get here on time. All those proceeds, those go to us as the network and then get distributed out to the shows as well. So not only, don't think about it too much as you're just supporting, you're also supporting these shows and the passion that is behind it. So go support those at podcastcity.net/shop. And we're always adding some new stuff. We're actually, looking into always adding some new gear and some new things that we can bring to you to be available at the shop. So check it out, podcastcity.net/shop.
There it is. Making it happen first thing in the morning, but it's okay. We try our hardest, but we still do have to try and make sense though of this entire situation going on with the NHL right now. They have now set a prospective start date, as well as teams are exploring different ways to try and battle the COVID-19 restrictions issues that we're seeing hit certain states and cities by exploring outdoor home games for the season. So definitely kind of an interesting approach. I don't know if it'll be viable in some cases, but still teams are looking into any and all options to be able to try and make sure that they have a good, successful season. As of right now, though, the NHL is looking at a mid-January start date consisting of a 52 to 56 game schedule, much reduced from the normal type of schedule they play at, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is 72 games. So definitely reduced.
82.
Or 82. And the NHL really wants to make sure this happens. They don't want to see the kind of issues that we've seen with other sports already. Obviously, the NFL being a prime candidate, as well as college football. Looking at you hard, NCAA. And they want to make sure they do this right. So instead of going for the January 1st date that they really wanted to start with, it's going to get pushed back a little. So they want to make sure that everything is in place, everything is ready to go, and that they're not going to have issues. Do you think that we're actually going to be able to see the season start right and have it error-free without a bubble?
It's going to be a lot more challenging. That'll be for sure. Obviously, with all the new restrictions and protocols that are being put in place around the country, and of course, you're talking about the difference between Canada and the United States, which you're seeing that in the NBA. That's going to be a really big, I guess, friction point for the NHL. But obviously, they wanted to start around January 1st, but they promised extra time for the teams that were in the playoffs, and you got to have, as long as with the new quarantine protocols in some of the markets. But they're aiming for that. We knew once COVID-19 derailed in the spring last year, over this past year, we knew that it was going to affect not one season but two seasons, because you can't have a regular season. The regular season should have started, a month ago already, but we couldn't because they were still in the off season. They just finished up with the Stanley Cup. So I would love to see this go off without a hitch as much as possible. Obviously, we're going to run into some hiccups. I don't know. That's why they're taking their time with this, because they know they can't start the season without a bubble and then go backwards and go, well, no, now we're going to do a bubble in Canada. And Canada's like, no, you're not, because you guys have been exposed in the States. So this is really going to be intriguing to see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks, because they're talking about, a month from now starting up the NHL season, and it's still an ever changing landscape with COVID-19, and you see more states putting in those heavier restrictions and protocols and lockdowns. Michigan and Pennsylvania being two of those states that I know off the top of my head have really ratcheted down again and gone backwards. So California is another one. So, but it's going to be really interesting.
Oh, yeah, it definitely will be. And we're still seeing, because keep in mind, none of this is finalized yet, because there's still battle right now over the financial issues of salary and how much it's going to be deferred, how much is actually going to get paid out for the season, things of that nature. But speaking at a Sports Business Journal panel on Wednesday, NHL Commissioner, Gary Bettman, said that planning for the 2021 season remained a fluid situation, just like you kind of mentioned, saying, quote, "That is a work in progress, influenced largely by what we're learning from medical experts. COVID is going through a second wave, which could be worse than the first wave, and between Thanksgiving and the aftermath and what they think is going to happen for Christmas and the aftermath, we are taking our time and making sure as we look to ways to move forward. We are focused on health and safety and doing the right things." So with that in mind, though, obviously you would think that the bubble idea would be on the table, but that is not something they want to do whatsoever. And like you said, if they end up getting themselves in trouble, Canadian government's not going to let them rebubble up there after trying to actually hold a season. Are you crazy? So this is going to be a very interesting situation. In my opinion, I think it's going to end up getting pushed back a little bit further. I see maybe a February 1st start date, maybe even somewhere in that first week, because they're going to have to try and find a viable plan and then get through all the financial hurdles they're dealing with, which, man, the owners honestly need to just get off their ass and just kind of find a way to find some compromise in here, because, players still got to get paid, but, let's not be ridiculous and try and take a quarter or more of their salary and just throw it to the side. But I don't know. Then again, athletes are really overpaid, aren't they?
Well, you got to look at it, because that's part of the reason why they don't want to do a bubble, is they want to allow the teams to go back to their home markets, because the assumption would be that through the spring, maybe halfway through the season, they're allowed to start getting fans in. And that's what the owners care about, is they want the revenue from the tickets and the revenue from everything that happens because of the games are being played live with fans. That's where the real stick is. And that's why the owners, and we saw this in baseball this last season. That's why there's the big sticking point, because of the fact that they want that revenue from the in-person attendance, which probably won't happen again this year, which that's the issue. That's the issue that you referred to about them trying to find a compromise, which is going to be very difficult. I would love to see another bubble type scenario, but here in the States, but do it in different regions. So like, do it in different, like for the different conferences and the different divisions you have, do bubbles based on that. But then the issue becomes, what if you can't just play the only teams in your division, and then it becomes a big ordeal. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I would like to see it start on time in mid-January, but I think it's definitely going to get pushed back to early February at the earliest, just because of everything that's been going on in the world, and they're still learning more about this virus.
Absolutely. And to point out some of the comments that we have going on in the chat right now, which if you have any comments or anything you'd like to say, definitely throw it in the chat. We try to bring these on the show. Jimmy saying these leagues need to make more of an effort to work flexibility into their protocols rather than assuming that what they do will always work out. And I have to absolutely agree. It seems like some of the leagues, especially the NFL, I feel like, and college football, I felt like, oh, well, we have these guidelines in place, it'll just work. And that's not always the case when you're dealing with the pandemic.
You know what that's called? That's called a God complex, because they think they're above what's going on in the world right now.
Yes.
And that's not an exaggeration, because look at what the NFL and some of these other leagues have done when things are going around outside. Look at what the NFL did with racial injustice. They were like, they thought they were above it, and they're like, no, we're not going to allow players to kneel and do this and do that. And then like team owners were like brushing under the rug. Like, that's what these professional leagues are like, because they're so used to being this big machine that just powers through and does what they do no matter what. And now we're seeing that they actually have to, oh my God, they have to actually adjust like the rest of us.
Yeah, who would have thought? So freaking crazy. But, we're going to see how a lot of this will work out. Definitely make sure to check back with us here at Final Score. We'll definitely have more on this as it develops, because we definitely know this is not really going to go away, especially when it comes to these teams also looking at outdoor games, which is kind of crazy unto itself, trying to find ways to make sure they can get around these restrictions. They're always popular when you have the outdoor Winter Classic every year, but now we're seeing the Boston Bruins exploring possible home games at Fenway, the LA Kings trying to host home games at Dignity Health Sports Park, home of the LA Galaxy. So it's very interesting to see what kind of angles that these teams are taking to try and ensure that they're going to have a way to be able to play games and maybe even have some fans at them. So what do you think about the teams actually exploring these types of options?
I love the outdoor games for the cold weather teams. That's what hockey was meant to be played in, that type of venue, outside in the wintertime, snow, cold. Players love it. But could you imagine the LA Kings playing outside in like 80-degree weather and the beaches right there? Like, that's not a hockey environment. You know what I mean?
Definitely not.
But so I understand how teams are trying to get around it. I like the creativity, playing outside. And again, outside for the NHL makes sense in the cold weather locations. Does not make sense in Miami, Tampa Bay, LA, Phoenix. It doesn't make sense there at all. Whatsoever. It doesn't make sense. So you're going to have players dying of heat stroke in a hockey game outside when it's 80 freaking degrees.
Because that makes sense.
Yeah. I'd really be interested in those warm weather locations. How do they manage like the health of the ice? Because I know it's super thick, but if it's that, and you have like things under, you have a system underneath the ice to keep it cold. I get it, but if it gets really hot in those warm weather locations, like, how's that going to affect the quality of the ice? That's really little things that I don't know if people think about, but yeah, that's a good idea. It makes sense in cold weather.
Oh, yeah. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Imagine the Lightning trying to go out and play outdoors somewhere, at like Raymond James or something. And, I don't see that ice surviving very long at all in that Florida sun. So I don't know, man. That's going to be pretty crazy. I don't know. Maybe for the Florida Panthers, it wouldn't be so bad. Go sit up in the Miami Marlins Stadium. It's enclosed anyways. Just bring some nice cold blowers on it. Keep a fan on. You'll be all right.
Yeah, I like the idea for those don't, well, they don't want to That's why they don't want to do it in an enclosed stadium because of, distancing and spacing. It's an enclosed
Oh
stadium.
no,
And
yeah, that's right. It's enclosed. Oh no, gotta go do
yeah,
it
that's,
over at Hard Rock.
oh, Jesus.
Yeah, imagine a hockey game at Hard Rock. That would be crazy. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. And like I said, we'll definitely see how it plays out. Definitely make sure to check us out on social media at PCN Final Score, and we'll definitely bring the latest and greatest when we find out more about it. Because best believe this is not going to end anytime soon. But it definitely is not going to be ending anytime soon. All the great platforms that we're on. See, gotta keep it segueing, man, because you can find us on a numerous amount of different content platforms, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Podcasts for your audio portions. And you can always find us for our video portions on YouTube. Just search keyword Final Score, one word, and be able to give us a like, a subscribe, and a follow there. That way you can check out all the latest and greatest that we release, whether it be our weekly episodes or our great interviews that we try to put out. Always trying to make it happen. And then you can find us in our central hub, podcastcity.net/Final Score, where you can find every single outlet, find our sports blog, and all the great stuff that we try to do. But we also got to talk a little bit about college football. Week 14 in the books. Absolute crazy weekend of football. Saw some upsets happen. Saw some teams stamp some tickets. Man, I tell you what, it was really exciting. And where I'm going to start off first and foremost is with number 2 Notre Dame getting that official stamp to the ACC title game, knocking off. Well, I guess it's not really a knockoff when the team was 1-9 going in, but Notre Dame beat Syracuse 45-21, 10-0 undefeated regular season. Love it.
That's what they needed to get into that position, because Clemson also won, number 3 in the country. They're 9-1. They won 45-10 at Virginia Tech. They stamped their ticket for the ACC title game against the aforementioned number 2 Notre Dame. Rounding out top 5, Ohio State destroys Michigan State 52-12. Texas A&M takes care of Auburn on the road 31-20. Florida, number 6, takes care of Tennessee 31-19. Iowa State punches their ticket for the Big 12. Finish 8-2. They're number 9, and they beat West Virginia 42-6. Miami 48-0 over Duke. Just to round out the top 10.
Yeah, definitely been crazy, especially that Florida game. You see Kyle Trask, Heisman hopeful, going absolutely insane. 35 of 49, 433 yards, and 4 touchdowns is beyond what Joe Burrow's pace was last year. Sadly, though, he won't be able to hit some of the same numbers because they're going to be playing less games. But either way, still a huge Heisman candidate that's going to be able to make some things happen. But looking a little bit further down this top 25, we saw number 18 Coastal Carolina upset number 13 BYU 22-17.
Shout out.
Oh, dude.
Shout out to the Chanticleers.
Yeah, the Chanticleers stopping BYU on the 1-yard line as time expired to win this game. Absolute classic. And this was a game that was scheduled last minute because Liberty, because of COVID reasons, was unable to make the trip to travel or to make the trip to play Coastal Carolina. I'm sorry. So Coastal Carolina was scrambling to find an opponent, found BYU, and the rest is history. We also saw TCU beat number 15 Oklahoma State 29-22 in another upset in the Big 12. And so much hope for Oklahoma State going into this year, and just didn't pan out.
Yeah, Oklahoma State had a lot of high hopes, and then as soon as they lost their first game, the season was already kind of done, because then they needed to win against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's got their number, so that's a tough season for Oklahoma State fans. But real quick about the BYU and Coastal Carolina game, that's why teams like BYU, and you see this a lot in college basketball, and that's why everyone avoided UCF for a long time. For teams like BYU, makes zero sense to go play a team like Coastal Carolina. You have nothing to gain there. Nothing to gain. I give them credit for wanting to go travel and being willing to travel and go play, but if you're BYU, you shot yourself in the foot. Congratulations. That was kind of a stupid scheduled game there. Even if you win, it's not a team that's in the Power 5, so you're not going to get any credit for it. You got primetime TV, which is probably the only good thing you got out of that. So that's not really I think in the future they'll probably avoid those types of games.
Oh yeah. You live and you learn. So, BYU was trying to put themselves in a position to make a statement, make a push to show that they belonged in the college football playoff. But sadly, it didn't work out that way, and you ended up getting upset. That's what happens when you get overzealous. Just like when you look at number 21 Marshall, previously undefeated, lost to Rice 20-0. Wow. So surprising after what Marshall was able to accomplish this year, and just losing like that. Wow, kind of surprising. Just as surprising as number 22 Washington falling to Stanford 26-31. What is going on? Or Oregon losing another game at number 23 Oregon, losing to Cal 21-17. Just topsy-turvy season, man. Upsets every week. Welcome to 2020 football.
Yeah, absolutely. And then shifting focus to the Big Ten, one game we haven't talked about. Number 12, Indiana traveled to Wisconsin, number 16, and took in a really low-scoring game, 14-6 in Madison. Indiana moves to 6-1.
And Indiana did it with a backup quarterback.
The only problem is that they're in the Big Ten East, and they have in Ohio State's 5-0, and they are not going to be in the Big Ten championship as far as Indiana's concerned. So that's kind of unfortunate for them. But, looking at that, how all that's going to play out for the Big Ten, they're probably not going to get any team in the college football playoff because, as you mentioned earlier last week, the minimum amount of games that you need to play in order to get into the Big Ten, which I think you said was 6 or 7?
6 games.
6 games. Well, Ohio State's going to play Michigan next week, so that'll be number 6 for them. So that's a possibility. But looking at that, if Ohio State for whatever reason does not play, because Michigan's game got canceled this weekend against Maryland. But looking at the rest of the teams that could be there, Northwestern 5-1, they're not getting the playoff. Indiana 6-1, they're not getting the playoff. So Big Ten's probably not going to be represented. It's going to be ACC and SEC, and that's it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And things next week could also get very interesting with Florida LSU playing. LSU has been very down, but LSU always plays Florida tough. You also have number 7 Cincinnati taking on number 24 Tulsa. So definitely some implications here that could happen. Also Wisconsin and Iowa going at it next week. So it's going to be interesting. But that key game that you had mentioned is going to be Ohio State Michigan. If that game actually happens, that's going to be Ohio State's only way, I think, to be able to make it into the college football playoff. Even though I don't agree that a 6-0 team, even if they're 7-0 after winning the Big Ten, should have any shot when you have teams like Notre Dame, who's one of only 2 10-0 teams in all of college football right now. I just don't think they played anybody that warrants them getting into a playoff. I really don't.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. Then why'd you play a fucking season?
Oh yeah.
Like if you know that's the stupid thing. But here's the thing with that. Why is Ohio State going to get in? Name recognition. That's what sells the advertising dollars, the revenue. As much as I agree with your statement, college football playoff is going to be much more well advertised and much better viewed, I should say, when you have Ohio State, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Alabama, or Florida, whoever you want to throw in there. When those 4 teams, because we'll put it this way, even if Notre Dame loses to Clemson in the ACC title game, depending on how the rest falls, Notre Dame's probably still going to make it in. Probably still going to make it in.
More likely.
So,
it's all a popularity contest.
Absolutely, which is why Ohio State, they're going to get this 6th game. They're going to win. They're going to destroy Michigan. They're going to destroy whoever they play in the Big Ten championship, and then they're going to make it to the playoff, and they're probably going to play, I don't know, probably number 4 because of the amount of games they played, unless you have that scenario where Notre Dame plays Clemson, Notre Dame's 2, Clemson's 3, Clemson wins, Clemson jumps up to 2, Notre Dame falls to 4, and then, that's probably the scenario that could happen too. So that's why Ohio State's getting in. Name recognition. That's all it's about.
Yeah, and it's sad when you look at from the competition standpoint that their best win was against Indiana. You look at they beat a crappy Nebraska team, a crappy Penn State team, a crappy Rutgers team, a crappy Michigan State team, and you're hanging your hat pretty much on one win because you beat a very good randomly Indiana team. So it just, from my standpoint, doesn't make any sense. But obviously, I always look at it from a competition standpoint more so than I do the money aspect of it. Because money aspect, Ohio State in every single year because that's one of the most recognizable programs in all of college football.
So here's I'm going to counter that argument slightly because I do agree that Ohio State's had a very weak schedule.
Mm-hmm. But
look at the Big Ten up and down. Outside of Ohio State, nobody's fucking good anymore. Like, nobody. Penn State has really fallen down. Michigan has been marred with players sitting out and players leaving, and it's a transition year, and it's just they're depleted. They don't have the team they were supposed to have coming in this year. Michigan State's in transition. Yeah, Indiana is randomly actually kind of good. So, but looking at that, the whole Big Ten is down.
Yeah.
But look at the SEC. LSU's down. And outside of Florida and Alabama, again, nobody else is any good. I mean, Texas A&M you can make an argument for, but even then are not consistent every single year. So the SEC's been down too, but they still get teams that are ranked in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to what you mentioned about the bias. That's why Ohio State's up there, because they've seen that success when the Big Ten was good, which is why Alabama gets the benefit of the doubt every single year, even when they play high school teams 4 games a year.
Mm-hmm. And people want to crap on Notre Dame.
Yeah,
but
Notre Dame needs their opponents to get better too.
Mm-hmm.
USC is not USC anymore.
Definitely.
The thing that actually was their saving grace was the fact that they played Clemson in an ACC schedule this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably what saved college football as a whole this year as well, because the Pac-12 wanted to go down, Big 12 wanted to go down, all these conferences wanted to go down. But once Notre Dame said, "No, forget that, let's team up the ACC and really make some waves," that changed everybody's mind. And now that's how we're even able to be sitting here talking about college football. So it's crazy to look how things have turned out. A lot of people are still upset at the fact that Notre Dame's doing this one and done with the ACC, and they might steal a title. All that, who cares? We're just trying to have football at this point. But we still want it to be competitive. And I think that's the issue I'm just having, is that the competitive aspect is just not there. Like you said, a lot of guys just doing these all-conference schedules, it does kind of hurt them to an extent when you still look, like you said, with the Big Ten. There's a lot of rebuilding going on, a lot of teams in transition. The same can be said for a number of SEC teams, but the bias always plays in. It always does. Because when you have a Nick Saban-led Alabama Crimson Tide, oh, man, that's hell of a team you want to have in your playoff versus, say, maybe Texas A&M Aggies. You know what I mean? So there's always going to be that favoritism there, because I bet you money that had BYU won against Coastal Carolina and was still in their contention, or hell, even Cincinnati, who's sitting there at number 7. Are you going to take Florida, or are you going to take Cincinnati? Are you going to take Ohio State, or are you going to take BYU? So you're absolutely right in that sense, but it just is not what's best for the sport of the game. And I think that's what bothers me. And considering we are in a 2020 year where no one's going to lose a year of eligibility, where this is pretty much an exhibition season, I feel like, let's make it about the competitive play. That's what gives us the best games. That's what gives you the views that you want with all of the ratings and all of the TV money and all of that. You want to put the best product out there. But again, sadly, because we have a bunch of damn casuals, some filthy casuals, you got to put name recognition out there. So I don't know.
That's why I'd love to see, when we get a full season starting next year, they should expand the playoff to 8.
Oh, they definitely should, because hell, we lived through the BCS era when FBS football was the only sport in all of the known world to not have a playoff. So, getting a 14 playoff was a step, but it's not what's going to fix it.
Yeah, take the top 5, take the Power 5 conference winners with some parameters. Like, you don't want a crazy, like, say for instance, Northwestern they win the West with like 7 wins, and then they upset Ohio State or something and get an 8-win team. You don't want that team in the playoff, but have some parameters to it. I would love to see the top 5 Power 5 winners. Number 6 would be a group of 5 team that ranks the highest. assuming that they're in like the top 15 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next two would be the next two strongest teams that are not in.
And a lot of ways that it can be approached, but sadly, the biggest problem we have is that a lot of these athletic directors, these university presidents, and of course the NCAA don't want to let loose on some of those things because why would they? You know what I mean?
Cash cow. College football is a cash cow. That's why.
Exactly. So, they're not going to want to compromise their cash cow in any way, shape, or form. And that's the issue I think we're going to see is that, having 30-plus bowl games is a lot more lucrative than having a legitimate playoff system. So, and remember when they had the big tagline, it was a couple of years ago or so, where it was, the season just matters more. Whereas more about emphasis, it's more about the season and making every game count and making every game like an important game because if you don't win at least one, then you're not going to make it to the college football playoff and all this when you still see teams that can go undefeated and still miss it entirely. So, that makes it hard from a coach's standpoint too. Like, how do you tell kids, hey, if you go undefeated, you guys can do it? You can't say that to your kids now. Because we've seen in the past where that's bitten people in the ass. You go undefeated, and guess what? Now you're just in a nice bowl game. Way to go! Here's your tablet, PS4, and your cool backpack we gave you, and get the hell out of here. We're gonna go make this $1 billion plus over here off of you playing like a crazy man. So it's that's what we deal with in the modern day slavery of college athletics.
Woo, spitting that fire this morning.
Oh, man, you know how I feel about these things. Oh, man, gets way too crazy. But still a lot of college football to be had, so definitely make sure to check back next week as we'll bring you the next update. As a lot of teams are now going to be winding down their seasons and playing their last games. Obviously, we know that Clemson and Notre Dame have both stamped their tickets to the SEC title game. Alabama also stamping their ticket to the SEC title game to meet Florida. So definitely going to be seeing how things take shape after this next week, and we'll have a lot more answers come then. Just like we have a lot of answers and awesomeness that comes out of Podcast City Network. What can you tell us about that, Craig?
Absolutely. Well, FinalScore is a proud member of Podcast City Network, and you can find us on social media as far as the network is concerned. Facebook.com/Podcast City Network, on Twitter @PodcastCityNet. You can search for us on YouTube and all the content from all of our shows. Just search Podcast City Network. The website is podcastcity.net. PCN is your home for up-and-coming independent podcasts. We have 18 on the roster currently, and from all different genres. We've got sports covered. You've got pop culture. You've got wrestling. You've got all those different genres accounted for. So if you want to check those out, podcastcity.net to check out all the slate of shows that we have.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a lot of great stuff, so definitely make sure to check it out. But at this moment, though, we got to switch gears and check out this crazy trade that happened in the NBA this week. Russell Westbrook has been traded from the Houston Rockets to the Washington Wizards for point guard John Wall and a lottery-protected first-round pick. Harden, though, still stays in Houston. So what do you think of this trade?
This is the first time in league history that a league MVP has been traded in consecutive off seasons. In one Russell Westbrook. That's a mouthful, man.
Oh yeah.
Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook.
So yeah, this is just a dump trade for Houston to me. Not only are they dumping his salary, but they're dumping him to a team in Washington that's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really this might end up playing pretty well for Washington Wizards, but this is just kind of going to show you that even though Russell Westbrook is a former MVP, he's had triple doubles, average triple doubles, for multiple seasons, but he's at 32 years old now. You can kind of show that the way his game, the style of his game, is not conducive to a winning environment. It's not conducive for players to want to play with him because he needs the ball in his hand. He's emotion is part of his game, but sometimes he takes it too far. And he's just he's one of those guys that is talented, as supremely talented as he is. He probably will never win a championship, just because he's not a pure point guard. He's not a true team player, I think is some of the it's made against him. He cares. He's cared in the past more about his stats than he does about winning games.
Yeah.
And that's really just unfortunate for him because he's such a talented player. But on the flip side, if you're Houston, this is telling James Harden, hey, look, we're working on trying to get guys out of here. And I don't know if that's telling him, Harden, that he's going to be out next, or if they're saying like, hey, you're stuck here and this is what we've done. Like you and Westbrook didn't get along. Okay, we're going to go get John Wall, who's, you don't really know what you're going to get because he's rarely healthy. But when he is healthy, he's not too bad. He's serviceable. But is his style of play going to play for Harden? Because both of those guys, again, need the ball in their hand. That's not a guy that's going to play well with Harden. So you got to wonder, what are they going to do with James Harden now? Are they going to try to move him? Are they just going to basically let his contract run out and they're going to end ugly? We don't know.
I mean, my thing was them trying to let the contract run out. That's 3 years you got to try and survive James Harden and his antics, his ego, and all that kind of stuff. The big thing I see here, though, is that Houston might have just backed themselves and not to being able to move Harden, because who's really going to want to try and pick up Harden at this point? He's made it kind of very known how he's felt about certain situations with Russell Westbrook. Obviously, the egos did become an issue. Russell Westbrook was looking to try and be a big-time contributor, ended up kind of being more of a power struggle, it seemed like. So you end up seeing Russell Westbrook being moved to Washington, and then Harden come out right after and say, "Oh, well, I'd rather play with John Wall anyways." Who says that? Like that makes me very, very worrisome in the kind of mindset that Harden has, that he's kind of, using, abusing, and throwing away guys that are good talent, because it doesn't help me. And that shows the ego issue that we have with Harden. And I don't know if teams are going to want to deal with that. However, I'm not saying it's going to be much better with Westbrook either, because after he got moved to Washington, said, I'm not changing up the way I play. I'm not changing up the way I approach the game. So this is what you get, Washington. And now he has to come in and play alongside Bradley Beal. And are we going to see a possible power struggle there as well? Because let's be honest, the Wizards are Beal's team. But now you have Westbrook coming in? I don't know. I feel like it's a powder keg waiting to blow.
Yeah, that's that attitude that Westbrook has is why he's a player that nobody wants. You've seen him bounce around. You've seen him have ugly marriages to certain teams because of that attitude. He's not willing to change. He's not willing to. Again, he only cares about himself. He doesn't care about the team. Now, what I think could play really well in Washington is the fact that Beal is a sharpshooter. But he averaged 30 and a half points last year, which is number 2 to James Harden. So that might play well into that these two might feed off each other, Westbrook and Beal, because Beal is such a great shooter and he can spot up and be that type of shooter. But as you mentioned, if you're the Wizards, like this is Beal's team, or it was Beal's team. Now you're going to have that locker room struggle. And look at what Beal and Wall were like not being able to get along. This is just going to amplify that by 10. So now what are you going to see here? I'm really going to be interested to see how this scenario plays out. If you're Washington, this was a terrible – it's good to get rid of John Wall at this point because he's not going to be the future of your franchise, but this was a terrible decision to bring in Russell Westbrook. The only thing you're going to do is sell merchandise, and you're going to generate some interest in your team and sell tickets eventually when you can do so again. But this is not a smart move by the Wizards. For the Houston Rockets, I don't know. Nobody's going to want James Harden's contract.
No.
Nobody's going to want James Harden's contract. The only teams that will want his contract are teams that have big cap space. So like your Knicks of the world, your who else has got a bit? Not really the Kings, but like some of those teams that have big cap spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only teams that are going to want James Harden at this point.
Well, they're going to be the only ones that are going to be able to afford him because he's still due 130 million plus over the next 3 years. So it's going to be really interesting to see though how this positions out. I just don't see him moving right now. It's crazy to me to think that that you have a guy with so much talent that teams just aren't going to want because who wants to deal with that attitude? So I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting situation. Honestly, I think Houston gets stuck with him for at least for one more year before they're able to realistically move him. But, who knows? The NBA and us being in 2020, anything could happen, and who knows what 2021 is going to look like. So,
3 years. Yeah, 3 years left on that deal is tough to move. But when you get somebody who's got 2 years left on the deal, that makes it a little bit more manageable for cap space and stuff like that. So, yeah, Houston's going to be in for a rough year. Their window was open a few years ago. It's shut. It's closed. There's no Houston, especially in that West. You got the Clippers, you got the Lakers, you got just those two teams right up the top. The Suns are much improved on paper.
Golden State too.
Golden State, if everyone stays healthy, Klay Thompson's out again for another year, so that
poor guy.
Sucks, man. I feel for him. He's such a nice guy too, from what you hear around the league, and it sucks that happened to him. But yeah, if you're Houston, I'm sorry, your window's closed.
Yeah, it's pretty much done for you guys. Even at that point, let's go ahead and give them. Because it's probably going to be a lost season anyway. So I don't see a whole lot happening out of that. But you know what is happening? Good old Podcast City Network. And the fact that you can join Podcast City Network if you are a new or upcoming podcast, because we offer an array of membership services, including logo design and branding, social media advertising, and live podcast hosting, and so much more. You also gain access to our network of shows to help with cross-promotion, guests, and overall reach, while also being part of an ever-expanding PCN community that's completely based on people helping people. And the best part is, it's no membership fee. So what are you waiting for? Go to podcastcity.net/join now and join the fastest growing independent podcast network around, Podcast City Network. And at that point, that means if we just hit the join PCN part, it's time for social madness. And I'm sorry, I got some really good ones this week. We had some really great fan submissions for our social madness this week. And, we're going to just hit it right from the top. How much do you like Vince McMahon? Everybody loves some Vince McMahon in their lives, especially
lots of feelings about him.
Yeah, right. I'm sure many do. But when it comes to expert analysis, bold predictions, Vince McMahon even knows. Guy, watch Final Score. God, I love these memes. These things are too good. Oh man! But our next one though, when you find a new obsession suddenly, what's the first thing people normally do? Dive in head first, right? That's what I do. I don't know. Dive in head first. Buy all the merch that you can. Because you know what? PCN Shop, we got so much great stuff over there. Oh, man.
Yeah, these are great. These are great memes, seeing these throughout the week.
Oh, man. And you know how people always try to get to Bill Belichick and try to figure out his secrets, try to figure out what the formula is to how he does everything. 6 Super Bowl rings, all that. Well, he's not going to tell us. So, tough shit. Oh my!
I'll never tell.
I'll never tell. It's too good. So there's great ways. I think this is why my youngest is such a brute. Why he is the way he is. I always told my wife that babies listening to music is always a great thing, right? It helps them get smarter, all that. So I always tell her that it's Mozart, but really, it's Final Score.
Just shaping the future sports fanatics of the next generation.
Exactly. Oh, it's too good. It's too good. So, remember I told you guys are going to bite your words about Derrick Henry playing against that Colts defense? I got
You mean George?
Yes, it was George. I'll put the blame on George on that one because he said there's no way that I was crazy.
I sat back and just watched all that unfold, and I was just like, I'm not getting involved in this.
Oh, yeah. And then Derrick Henry went out like a boss and scored in every fashion that he could. So, that's how you end up with memes like this. So, oh, my goodness. It is too good. Too good. But for our last one, we have one more meme. And, we always try to be good seasoned vets. We always try to bring the very best and try to be some of the most interesting sports alive. But I don't always watch sports shows. But when I do, I watch Final Score. Oh my gosh, too good. It is.
I love the Dos Equis guy.
I mean, you can't go wrong with the Dos Equis guy, man. You can never go wrong with the Dos Equis guy. But you know what else you can't go wrong with?
You can't go wrong with PodChaser.
That's right. Tell us about PodChaser.
PodChaser is your daily source for podcast discovery. Apple Podcasts is no longer the only credible place that you can rate and review podcasts. You can follow individual creators such as ourselves. You can browse every podcast ever, and you can even rate and review individual episodes. Just go to podchaser.com, and you can search keyword Final Score. That's one word. Just so you can go ahead, you can go find our show. You can find, we have on the side, there's a top 8 of shows that we recommend, as well as all the shows that we have, and you can go ahead and take a listen there. You can give us a follow, a rating, and a review. Obviously, we love to hear the feedback. We love to hear the reviews, stuff that's going on that you think is going well, things that you think we can improve on. All that helps us get better for you, for the listeners. So you go to podchaser.com, search keyword Final Score.
Always great stuff. Always great stuff. Absolutely love it. But that also means it is time for the week ahead. And what do we got on the slate there, Craig?
Well, next week we got episode 85 of Final Score. It's going to be next Sunday at 10 a.m. here on Facebook Live. But in the sports world, while you're waiting for us to arrive on your phones or your computer screens next weekend, some big things in the sports world. Major League Soccer conference finals. Obviously, if you're a soccer fan, I'm sorry we don't cover a lot of soccer. But,
sorry.
But Orlando's team was eliminated from the playoffs last weekend.
Oh, why you gotta talk about those things, man?
They're eliminated from the playoffs last weekend against New England. So today, Columbus is traveling to New England to play at 3 p.m. That's going to be on ABC. And then tomorrow, the other conference final is Seattle at Minnesota on Fox at 9:30.
Ooh, Seattle Sounders.
Yeah, Seattle Sounders, one of the most dominant teams in MLS over the last 20 years.
Absolutely. And we also have some college basketball that's going to be taking place this Tuesday on the 8th. Number 9 Crichton traveling over to take on number 7 Kansas. Also have number 14 North Carolina going on to take on the number 3 Iowa Hawkeyes, as well as the Fighting Illini of Illinois at number 5 traveling on down to take on number 6 Duke and the Devils, the Blue Devils, I should say. Definitely going to be some great college basketball this week.
Yeah, fun slate if you're a college basketball fan. Tuesday is always a Super Tuesday, as they call it. It's always a lot of fun to check out. And last but not least, the NBA preseason tips off this Friday night. They're doing it a little bit differently. So for the preseason, you're only playing against one team, but you do 6 games total. 3 games are going to be at one team's location. The other 3 games are going to be at the other team. So for the games they're going to be playing Friday night, Orlando will be traveling to Atlanta. Detroit's going to be hosting the New York Knicks. Houston's going to be at Chicago. Clippers at Lakers, so in the same building. And then Kings at Blazers. All those games are going to be Friday night. And then, of course, Saturday, there's a huge slate of preseason games as well. But it's a lot of fun. We're right around the corner for the NBA season. We got some fun stuff lined up. I've been talking to a bunch of basketball podcasts over the last day or two, and we're going to try to set some cool stuff up for the NBA season.
Yeah, most definitely. So definitely make sure to keep your eyes peeled, not only on Final Score, but also on Podcast City Network. There's going to be a lot of great announcements coming up, a lot of things that we have in the works. So keep your eyes peeled because we're trying to do things over here. So definitely make sure to check back. And then, of course, like Craig said, episode 85 next week of Final Score, next Sunday, 10 a.m. here on Facebook Live. Definitely make sure you don't miss it by marking for the notifications on our Facebook page. That way you are notified when we go live. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss it. So definitely make sure to check it out. But, man, that brings us to the end of this episode. Craig, any final words?
If you're holiday shopping, you need some ideas, pcnshop.com. Check it out.
Hey,
and get your orders in this week.
Man, that's the best plug yet, man. I'll just go ahead and just, Yes, definitely hit up PCN Shop. That way you can go ahead and get all those great gifts for all the loved ones and people in your life. So much great stuff on there, and there will be new stuff added, guaranteed. The only way I know that, well, it's because I did it. Anyways, so
I got your present from the shop already lined up, ready to go.
Oh, he's so sweet. I got yours too, so don't worry. All right, but definitely make sure to check us out next week for episode 85. But until then, I'm Chris, and that's Craig. And you guys have just watched Final Score. Y'all have a great night. Podcast City Network.